All right, so my students, so we are opening up with lesson 16, um, unit 3, lesson 16, and it's going to be very similar to keyboard entries, but we are going to be doing mouse inputs, okay? So again, if else, let's make a prediction. Read through the following program, paying special attention to the if else block on line 10. After discussing the questions with your partner, write down your predictions and run the code to see what the program does. So, um, what do you think is going to happen if you press the space bar? What happens if you don't press the space bar? So, if key down space balloon scale is plus 0.02, else balloon scale is minus 0.01. What do we think is going to happen to the scales of the balloon if I am not pressing the space bar versus if I am pressing the space bar? Somebody go ahead and let me know what you are thinking about that. You can put it in chat or you can unmute yourself and just talk. What is going to happen if I do or don't press my space bar? Thank you. Yes, somebody said they said it'll change. So how is it going to change? So if I press down the space bar, then what happens to my scale? Does it get bigger or smaller? What do you guys think? Yep, thank you. Somebody said bigger, somebody else said smaller. That's fine. So let's go ahead and run the program and see what actually happens. So I'm not pressing spacebar, but now I am. But now I'm not. And it's getting smaller, but now I am, and it's getting bigger. So this is an if-else statement. If something happens, then there's one outcome. Otherwise, there is another outcome. Okay? So this is an if-else statement. It is a lot like the conditionals that we've already been using. But once you've made your prediction, go ahead and hit reset and submit. Okay, so we are going to watch a quick little video on if-else statements. Give me 1 second to get this set up properly. All right, here we go.
Conditionals, like if statements, are great for getting something to happen when a condition is true. But what if the condition is false and we want something else to happen? That's when the if-else statement comes in handy. At first, an if-else statement looks a lot like a regular if statement. But by clicking the plus button down here, we can add another condition, the else. The if-else statement will do one thing if the Boolean expression is true, and will do something else if the Boolean is false. In this case, we're going to create a sprite in the middle of the screen. Next, we'll add a draw function, followed by a white background. Now we'll add an if-else statement by dragging out the if block and clicking the little plus button to give us an else. Let's give the conditional something to check, like whether the right arrow button is being pressed. If the right arrow is being pressed, then the sprite will go right. But if the right button isn't being pressed, then the Boolean will be false, and the code in the else section will run. In this case, it will move the sprite to the left. Finally, we'll draw the sprite and see what develops. Now that you can use the else statement, your programs can perform twice as many actions and reactions as before.
Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, we now have the ability to do if-else statements. So if one condition is true for our Boolean expression, then it does one thing. But if that Boolean expression is false, then we can make it do something else. So basically, we can make a lot more things happen inside of our code without having to do like bring in a whole nother set of code that we have to write, which is always nice when we can simplify things. All right, cool. So let's take a look at bubble number 3. It asks us, it says these gears already spin in one direction when you press the space bar. Now you want them to spin in the other direction when the space bar isn't pressed. Do this, make the gears spin in the opposite direction when the space bar is not being pressed. All right, so let me get rid of my instructions. Let me see if I can make that any bigger. It looks like I can't. All right, so if the keyboard is spaced, so if I press escape, so I'm going to go ahead and run this, nothing's happening. When I press my space bar, I have this rotation happening. That's perfectly fine. That's great. But now I want to add an else statement to my code. So if I'm not pressing the keyboard or the space, I want it to spin in the opposite direction. So to pull up the else, what we're going to do is down here in the code, let me make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to read. So if you'll notice this blue bracket of if, there's a little plus sign right there. If you click on that plus sign, you will get the else portion. So if this keyboard is down, the space bar is down, then this all is going to happen. But if it's not down, if that Boolean expression is false, then what's going to happen? Well, I want it to spin in the opposite direction, which means I'm going to need the opposite code, which is fine. I can do that. So pretty much I'm going to write all this code over, but instead of having it minus and plus, I'm just going to reverse it and have it be plus, minus, minus. So again, I'm going to go ahead and bring in 3 statements. I'm going to bring, let's see, the first one is minus. So the first one I'm going to bring in is a plus because I'm doing opposites. The second one on line 15 is a plus, so I'm going to bring in a minus. And the third one on line 16 is a plus, so I am going to bring in a minus. And again, that is just because I want them to go spin in the opposite direction. Now I'm going to bring in my sprites, and these are all rotations, and that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and place those. I'm using the one above as sort of my model, if you will. So I'm going to bring all of these sprite rotations in to where they need to be. And again, I'm just modeling my lines 18, 19, and 20 after lines 14, 15, and 16. Because, if the program already works, I am just going to sort of use that. All right, so now I'm just going to copy and paste blue gear. Oh, that is not what I meant to do. Apparently I didn't copy it. My bad. So blue gear for the first one. Copy and paste. Blue gear for the second one. Copy and paste. Green gear for the second one. Line 19, I'm going to make that my green gear. Line 20 is going to be my red gear. And then on line 14, it was -1. So line 18, I am going to make +1. For line 19, I'm going to make -1. And for line 20, I'm also going to make -1. So I'm going to go ahead and reset. All I did was create an else statement. I recreated all of this code underneath, but I did the opposite. So instead of plus, it's minus. Wherever it used to be minus, it is now plus. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit run. Now, I am not touching anything. I'm not touching the space bar. But when I do touch the space bar, notice my gears now spin in the opposite direction. So again, the power of an if-else statement is that you have one thing happening if the Boolean expression is true, and you have something else happening if the Boolean expression is false. All right. Issues or questions? All right. Hearing none, we move on. Okay, it says here is the same program but with one small difference. Read the program carefully, especially line 13. Figure out how to control the gears. Run the program and test whether you are correct. Make the gears spin in the opposite way when there is no user input. Okay. Mouse down. Okay. So nothing's happening. If I press my mouse button, they start to spin. And that's my right mouse button. Okay. If I'm not pressing the mouse button, they stop spinning. So notice we now have this new line of code. We're not using keys anymore. We're using mouse. But again, we want this to spin in the opposite direction if there is no user input. So we're going to basically do the same thing that we did before. We are going to create an else statement. Let me reset this. I'm going to go into my variable box. I'm going to do 1 for the blue, 1 for the green, 1 for the red. I'm going to drag these. Oh, I need my math first. My bad. So it was minus plus plus. So I'm going to be plus minus minus. I'm literally just recreating it again, but opposite. I am now pulling in my rotations because that's what we're dealing with. That's what we want to have happen. We want to have a different rotation if there is no mouse input. And then I'm going to go +1, -1, -1. So line 18 is going to be about the blue gear. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I've let you in. I'm so sorry. I think I had muted because with these on, I can't hear my other computer. So for that, I apologize. That's on me. Okay, so I'm now going to replace my green gear. Oops. Green gear. And now we're going to have red gear. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit run. I'm not pressing anything, but once I put down my left mouse button, they spin in the opposite direction. So for those of you who have ever spent any time playing online games, hopefully you know that, yeah, you're going to be using your mouse button or mouse buttons, hopefully, quite a bit. Okay, so there's that. Issues or questions from Bubble 4. Any issues or questions for bubble number 4? Okay, doesn't look like it. So we're going to go ahead and hit finish. All right, let me go to the original version. All right, so now it says, here is a program that drops a balloon down the screen. Make the balloon go down, up, and down according to whether or not the user is pressing the mouse. Add code that checks whether the mouse is being pressed. Move the balloon up if the mouse is down. Otherwise, move the balloon down. Okay, so we are going to be adding in a lot of stuff that we've already worked on, but I'm going to use the counter pattern for this. All right, so in the control box, I'm going to pull in an if-else statement. If mouse down, let's see, if the mouse is down, I want the balloon up. Okay, so if my mouse is down, let me just, so I'm just going to pull that in. That should work. Should go there. Okay, so right now I'm not pressing the button and my mouse is my my balloon is moving downward, okay? But I want to create code that says that if I'm pressing my mouse button, that it's going to move the balloon up. So obviously if down is with this positive, then up would be negative. So I'm going to go ahead and recreate that. Go into my math, grab a minus. And again, I want my Y. So sprite Y and Y. I'll make this a -1, which is fine. And I will change the name of my sprite from sprite to balloon with a copy and a paste. So now I am telling my computer that if my left mouse button is down, then I want my balloon to have -Y. Remember, negative is going up the screen. If I want my balloon if I'm not pressing the mouse button, then I want the balloon to drop. So if I go ahead and hit run, that balloon is dropping. If I hit my little key for my mouse, the balloon goes up. So if my left button is down, then my Y is going up. Otherwise, then my the balloon is going to drop. All right. Issues or questions on what we did here? Right? All right. Reset and any issues or questions on bubble number 5, guys? Okay. I'm hearing none. We're going to go ahead and hit finish on this and continue. Okay. So now we have the last one before you'll get your practice in and then your little assessment at the end. The if block to shake the blender when the mouse is on the left side of the screen. Run the program to see how it works. Add an else to make the mixer shake if the mouse is on the other side of the screen. Okay, we can do that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So we'll go ahead and hit run. Oh, you know what? This is probably... Let me start over. I'm like, why is it already working? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit run, and we'll see how this works. So the blender will move if my mouse is over here on the right side of the screen, but the mixer's not working if I'm hovering over it. So basically, I want this thing to shake like the mixer does if my mouse is over here. So let's check out our Boolean expression. If the mouse X is less than 200, then it looks like I have random numbers causing my blender to shake. See? And how do I know it's less than 200? And you can bring up your grid. This center line is 200. Look at my X, 191. But the minute I go over here to 203, it stops. Exactly 200. 199, it's shaking. 201, it stops shaking. When I cross over, though, I want my mixer to start shaking. So again, how am I going to do this? I'm going to create an else expression. So if my mouse is less than 200, the blender shakes. Otherwise, or else, and again, I'm going to pull in 2 because I'm just using the up top one on top as a model. I'm going to bring in a sprite X. Actually, I need the, yep, sprite X, sprite Y, and then I'm going to pull in my random number generator. All right, so it looks like my mixer is being created at 300, 300. I'm just looking at line 3 of my code. So my X, I am going to give this maybe about 10 pixels of movement. So I'm going to go down to 295. And I'm going to take this up to 305. And I will do the same thing for my Y position. 295 up to 305. And I need to change the word sprite to mixer. And I'm just doing that using a cut and paste because I always misspell things. That is, just my lot in life. I can't spell to save my life. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit reset and run. So now, if my mouse is over here, less than 200, my blender is shaking, right? That's what I wanted. But if my mouse is over here and my X is greater than 200, then my mixer is shaking. So that's a very simple type of animation that we can now code for. All right, any issues or questions? Computer science children, issues or questions? Okay. We're going to go ahead and reset that and hit finish and continue. All right, your job, ladies and gentlemen. You are going to make the ladybug walk using the mouse. You are going to make a ghost move using your mouse. Those are your practice. Practice for your if-else statements in bubble 7. And then for bubble number 8, you are going to fix the program according to what it's asking you to do, which I'm not sure what it is. Oh, it just says change the code so the creature only shakes when the mouse is being pressed. Change the code so the directions only show up when we are not pressing the mouse. So I should, if the mouse, so if that thing is shaking, I shouldn't see the directions, and if he's not shaking, I should see the directions. All right, so you guys go ahead and finish off bubble 7 and 8. If you have any issues or questions, as always, please feel free to ask, but this is now your work time to get it done.